feminism is not a stagnant thing. It's a constantly moving, constantly changing movement, discourse, conversation. Was always a feminist and had kind of feminist opinions, and I was like the allowed, opinionated Italian girl from Queens in all of my classes. So that the feminism was already there, but it wasn't until kind of I went to SUNY Albany and took women's studies classes that, like, for me it was very much the personal first and then the political, where I was like, oh, there's nothing wrong with me, like I'm not obnoxious, like the world is just sexist. That was just a personally really revelatory moment. Because of the nature of my work, and because the goal of my work is largely about feminist evangelism and making feminism, well, you know, as accessible as possible, I kind of give back what I consider to be a strategic answer, which is, I say, I believe in the dictionary definition of feminism, which is, you know, structural equality between the sexes, economic equality, political equality, social equality, because I find it's the most difficult to argue with, and it's a definition that gives people a lot of freedom to feel like they can, if not identify with it, at least look into it more and get more interested. I would say a couple of things. I would say if you're in the middle of like an argument like this, don't feel like you need to explain yourself that moment, right? Like, because sometimes like you get angry and, like you said, like it's hard to find the words and it's hard to kind of put it together, and like you may want to take a minute, like take a day, go read some stuff that might be helpful and go back to them. The second thing I would say is it's often helpful to meet people where they're at. Try to find an entry point that's a little bit easier to start the conversation up again. The third thing I would say is you don't always have to convince everyone. Think about like your activist energy as a precious resource, right? And think about where you want to spend it. Have an action item in every post. Before you like this, or before you tweet this out, like please consider doing this, or please consider doing this, and having a couple of kind of options, right? If you're thinking about liking this piece, or if you're thinking about sharing this piece, like here are 3 other ways that'll really kind of make a difference. But you know, I also wouldn't underestimate the value of sharing and online visibility. I find it's easier, instead of trying to inundate people with information, to ask them questions, like really genuine questions, and let them kind of tell you why they're coming from this place. And kind of, I feel like the more questions that you ask someone, and you're like, really, why do you feel that way? Like, even if someone tells like a sexist joke to me, someone I care about, I'm like, huh, so you think all women like that? Like, really? Like, tell me why. Like, well, what makes you think that? And I don't say much, and you just let them talk and talk and talk. Often you'll find either that they talk themselves right back to your point, or that you find an entry point for more conversation or to make your argument. I think part of the problem is if we're only thinking about feminism as this thing that is, as this stagnant thing, then it becomes really upsetting to us when there's all of these conflicts. But if we think about it as something that's constantly moving, then that's okay, right? Like, then it's okay if people think different things and are having conversations and are having fights and debates.